Awesome. So thank you so much, Josh Talks. Josh Love Talks. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. Can you please give us an introduction to yourself? So just kind of explain who you are, what you do, that kind of thing.
Sure. Hello, my name is Josh. Obviously, that's where Josh Love Talk comes from. In terms of what I do by day or by profession, I'm a PMO analyst working in the project management space. And on the side, I've got a, an interest, or should I say, I don't like using the word passion because it sounds so cliche. I've got a very keen interest in talking about dating and how singles can navigate the dating space, because I feel like it sets the foundation for what a good marriage and what a good relationship would be. So I've got a YouTube channel, Instagram channel, Josh Love Talk, where I just give dating advice, mainly from a guy's perspective, in terms of how to navigate dating, some of the key things to pay attention to. And I guess if I would summarize what my dating thing is about, is just don't waste your time. Whatever it is, whatever angle you choose to go in, whether you want to go with the flow and just have a good time, situationships, you're looking for marriage, you want something serious, all my advice is centered around don't waste your time. So know what you want, go for what you want, and hopefully you end up in the right place. So that's it in a nutshell, introduction of myself. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. And that's a lovely segue now into tell us about your particular love story. How did you meet your wife? So you said don't waste their time. Did you? How was your own love story like? Let us know, and just yeah. So your love story, how you met your wife, and then what you did to prepare during your single season.
Yeah. So I met my wife in church. We went to the same church. We've been around each other for a long time, because when I moved to the UK, I lived with my aunt, and my aunt was friends with her parents. So they all went to the same church, and then her dad started the church, and I happened to be in that church. I was the drummer. I was playing drums. Okay. She was singing, as pastors' kids do. So yeah, in between all the singing and music and everything, at some point we gravitated towards each other, started talking, led to relationship, became something that's serious, and eventually we're where we are. Glory to God. We've been married now, gonna be 10 years next year, and we're blessed with two beautiful babies, although they're not really babies anymore, but yeah, still my babies. So that's in terms of how we met. In terms of what I did in my single season, I think for me the first point was deciding that it is time to settle down, and that's probably the game changer, or that was the catalyst for everything else that came. Me saying, all right, cool, this is the person that I want, or I'm ready now for a serious relationship, ready for marriage. And that came as a result of time. I would say it was just that point in my life where I just thought, okay, it's time to get serious. And I met somebody that felt, I had a loyalty, someone that I felt that would ride for me, someone that I felt if we were going through a situation, she would always have my back. And for me, those were probably the key things in terms of choosing her to be my wife. Of course, there's the physical aspect and the attraction, but overall, those were those key items that were non-physical that I felt like, all right, this is the person I want to do, this marriage journey with. And how I prepared, like I said, I think most of it is just saying I'm ready, and then just cutting away everything that would get in the way of that. So the other women I was talking to, didn't get their numbers. Well, I feel old. We didn't really have as much DMing as there is
BBM?
Now. Well, there was BBM. There was I think else was starting to come up there, but all of that just sort of did away with that. Just sort of focused on myself, and this is something I'm big on: self-work and accountability. Everything, in my opinion, starts with self. We can go blaming people, what people do, what people don't do, whatever, but I'm a big believer in accountability. Everything begins with self. Knowing what you want, going for what you want, how you behave, the effect of your attitude, what you say to yourself, your expectations, all of that, I think plays a massive part in how things would work. And then I did a counseling course at that time as well, where I had the opportunity to, because I wanted to be a counselor, right? So I did a counseling course, and that gave me opportunity to also speak to. So we had sessions where it felt like a counseling session, and that gave me the opportunity to sort of get in tune with myself. So understanding myself and how I can be a partner for somebody, how I can add value to somebody, and knowing that I was in the right space, mentally, emotionally, I want to say financially, but yeah, that was ups and downs at the time. I'm not gonna lie, but having a good idea of what this thing entails. Now I'm talking about marriage, like not just boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm talking about marriage, like what it entails. And of course, there's no way you can really prepare for everything. You know, there are some things that in the last 10 years we've been through, or I've gone through, that nothing would have prepared me for it. There's no way I would have seen that from that point. But just having that mental, emotional, spiritual thing that this is what I'm going into, I'm being prepared for it as best as you can. I think that plays a massive part. Hopefully I've answered the question. And
you have. Oh my gosh. If you say I'm writing notes, I'm rigorously writing notes. Thank you. That's beautiful. And I definitely see the effects of your counseling education in some of the things you say, and how and I think that's why I connected a lot with what you were saying, because, you know, like when I first started listening to you, I realized, okay, yes, you know, you're coming from the male perspective and all of these things, but at the same time, it's like, it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it's not like just for the male gender. I'm like, for everybody, this makes sense. Knowing yourself, to thyself be true. Know thyself and know, you know, where kind of when you're ready. So thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. So that being said, now in this current era and generation, you know, you said something very interesting, that back then when you were, and just so you understand, I have older siblings that are in around the same age range as you. So you're like my brother. That's why I keep saying sir. But literally, you know, all my siblings are in that age range. So, you know, when they were going through their love stories and everything, I was still young. So I was just like, oh, just see, you know, their wives now just come around. I was like, oh, okay, you know. So for me, I just assumed, oh, when it's my turn, when I get to that stage, that's how it's gonna be, you know, just pop up, you know. So to some extent, missing those aspects of having those kind of real conversations. And because I also had brothers, I saw how, you know, they were interacting with their girlfriends, now wives, and things like that. And I see the caliber of men that are surrounded by me now, you know, awesome brothers, and not blood brothers, but just and I'm just like,
Christian brothers.
Yes, and I'm just like, it's not giving, you know. Let me use Gen Z terminology. It's not giving. So in your opinion, what do you think is really inhibiting within this 21st century young ladies and young guys from settling down? Those that really do want to, because, you know, we have the people that want to do situationships. That's all well and good. That's over there. We're going to keep that there. But for those that are really, you know, looking to settle down, looking to have kingdom marriages, you know, as I told you in the beginning, I look at my caliber of friends and I'm like, you know, these people that I surround myself with, that I'm doing life with, they are absolutely amazing women. You know, they are in tune with their emotions. Yes, everybody has things that they're working on, which we all do, right? But at the same time, very driven in their career. You know, they have a good head on their shoulders. They take accountability. So what is it? Why is it that the so-called men, kingdom men, are not approaching? Why is it that even those that do approach, you have to just be like, God, Holy Ghost, fire. You know, so in your opinion, what do you think is some of the things that is influencing people from settling down?
Um, there are a number of things. I'll go through the ones that I often talk about. But actually, let me start from here. Just because you just described the times we're living in, I think social media plays a massive role in hindering, and it also plays a role in connecting. But I think it does it hinders a lot of people from from settling down, and that happens in a number of ways. One's too many options, right? People, you can just jump into DMs after DMs after DMs after DMs. And if you're using your Tinders and your Bumbles and your Hinges, you can just keep going right. And what happens is everybody gets this feeling that I can do better because everything is just so accessible. So if I meet somebody today, one little stain or one little thing that I don't like, okay, no, that's not for me. The grass must be greener because I've got access to a world of people, and that makes it extremely difficult to want to stick to one person because you feel like, okay, this person, I met this person, I don't know, their teeth was wonky. No, that can't be the person for me. I'm gonna go find somebody. I met this other person. Oh my God, the way they were eating, I don't like it. So that little things that wouldn't have much effect in terms of building a strong relationship or longevity. People take it on board and and use that as a way to just throw situations away. So that's one thing. The other side of social media is expectations. There is people have extremely high expectations in the sense that. Sorry, I can hear my daughter crying in the background. I'll walk you here in a second.
Okay,
Just give me a second.
Nice.
So people have very high expectations, and that comes in the space of you want today what it has taken other people a very long time to build, right? So you see on social media all these couples going on holiday, having a great time. You see them posting all this, life is great, we love each other, we've been together for 20 years, it looks great, everything is amazing. What that post does not show you are the arguments that happens in the background. What that post does not show you are the times where they didn't talk to each other for a week, right? And they lived in the same house. What that post does not show you is the amount of times they wanted to break up and go different ways, but they just decided to stick with it. But nobody sees that. So it's easy to believe that relationships or marriages are just this big bed of roses, and as you just have this great time, and we should just be compatible and have this love goals and relationship goals. So when you meet somebody and maybe in the first few weeks, there's a little disagreement, there's a little contentiousness. You think, oh my God, this cannot be the person. Why are we arguing like this? They can't be the person for me. You start to pick on things that in the grand scheme of things can be fixed, but you've got this expectation in your head that this is how it should be. So you walk away from those situations. But those are two key things. I'll say one more just because of time. People don't really have a deep understanding of what they're looking for. They know what they want. They know what everybody knows what they want. He has to be told. He has to have a job. He needs to have this nice house. He needs to have done this by this stage. She needs to be a wifey material. She needs to know how to cook. But it's not in terms of what are the needs, what are the wants. There's a difference between what you need and what you want. What you need are your non-negotiables. So things that you should not negotiate, things that you wouldn't negotiate on. So for example, if you're somebody that's spirituality might be a non-negotiable. I cannot date or go out with somebody that is non-Christian, for example, or someone that's not of the same spiritual level as me. But a lot of times people don't have this non-negotiables. People just want a whole bag of things. I'm sure you do a lot of shopping. If you go on any page or anywhere you're shopping and you start adding filters after filters after filters after filters, what happens when you click result is nothing will show up because you've got too many filters. And that's the way dating kind of works, because people cannot find anybody because you've got so many filters in terms of I want this, 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 and you cannot differentiate which one is I need to have this now. This one I can negotiate on. This one I can give some leeway on. This one I don't actually need. If this doesn't happen, it's not a deal breaker. You know? And a good example for me and these days is a lot of women say they want a 6-foot guy. I don't understand how this has become a trend. I understand it. If you're like 5'11" and you want a 6-foot something guy, it makes sense. And then you meet some people, you're 5'2" or 5'3". Yeah, he has to be 6 foot. Why? What does that do for you? I was talking to somebody the other day, and she said that she's like maybe 5'2", right? She said she wants a 6-foot guy. Why? Because she said she wants her children to be tall. So it's just little things like that. And I'm not trying to say you shouldn't want what you want. Everybody should want whatever it is you want. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, where dating is very competitive, if you treat it as a business, as a market, it's competitive. A lot of people also want what you're looking for, right? So you have to understand what are the things that you want to sort of negotiate. What are the things that doesn't really matter, things that you can do away with, because the goal really should be things that add value to the relationship, things that will make you have longevity in your relationship, not just things that look good. And I think these things play a massive role in whether people settle down or not. Of course, just being attentive to yourself and being the best version of yourself. I will finish up with that, because sometimes we don't do the work on ourselves, but we want somebody that is perfect, somebody that has everything we're looking for, but we don't want to do the work on ourselves. Because, I mean, to be fair, it's difficult to look in the mirror and spot your shortcomings. We look for that in the other person. We say this person is not this person doesn't know how to hold a conversation, this person doesn't know how to do this. But how well do you listen? How well do you pay attention when people are talking to you? How good is your attitude? You know, so self-work, whether that's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially, is so key, because that is, once again, that is the foundation. You know, you want this great stuff, you have to be the person that can add value to the person you're looking for. Those things, in my opinion, drive a lot as to why people are saying, of course, there are tons more, but let's just go with those 3 or 4 that I've mentioned for now.
Yes, come on. You have to be the person that can add value to the person you're looking for, right? You have to add. That's a really good
I'm a big believer in value as well, because it's how people perceive you. If people see you as an asset to their life, that means when they're dealing with you, this person can actually add something to me, because we're all going somewhere in life. We all have our ambitions. We all have things we want to be. We all have things we want to do. The state of mind we want to have. You want somebody that can come in and add to that. And I guess that's where this whole thing about what do you bring to the table conversation comes from. But really and truly, some people get angry with that, but really and truly, what everyone's asking for is value. Where can you add value? It's just that it's done from the other person's perspective. What I'm saying is you have to look at it from your perspective, as opposed to what can I get from you. Start thinking about what can I give? What do I have in me to give? Because if you have a lot to give, eventually you're going to start attracting the right people. A number of times we're just thinking about the things that we can get, so we're always looking at the other person, what they have or what they don't have, as opposed to within us working on ourselves to make sure that our cup is full, so when somebody else comes along, we have something to pour into them. And if they don't have anything, then you're confident that, you know what, I've done my work, you haven't done your work, and this is not where I want to be.
That is amazing. Oh wow, thank you so much for that. Too many nuggets. Okay. So now we're about to get into some nitty-gritty, possibly controversial topics. You said you said something about just the idea of everybody knowing what you the value that you bring to the table. I really like that. I'm gonna kind of probably munch that in the blog. But another question I had was, do you think that the church has allowed, and this is not, we're going to talk about the ladies as well, but do you think that the church has allowed young men to get away with a lack of understanding what biblical leadership entails? And so that's one part. And then on the second part, do you think that at the same time the church has been focused too much on biblical submission for the ladies? The reason I ask this is because if you just go general Google, right, and just say, okay, what does it mean submission, and you go on YouTube, there's so many videos. So you have so many videos about this is what it means to submit. Some people are on different extremes of this conversation, right? And even I think earlier on when you were talking about being ready for a guy, from your perspective at least, you said that you just knew within yourself you were ready to start looking for somebody. You found someone, you're like, okay, I think this is the time. For ladies, let me tell you, from our perspective, we are primed with information from the get-go. As soon as you are maybe 20, even 18, God said, they already start telling you, is that how you do your husband's house? So just imagine, right? We're trying to reconcile this, like, we're not enemies, right? It's like, okay, for the male and female, we're supposed to work together to get to a point where, we're building kingdom marriages. That's the end goal. Well, at least for those that desire such, that's the end goal. So why does it feel like, you look from the landscape, and from this perspective, it's almost one-sided, right? Where you have all the ladies that have all these conferences, it's always the ladies that are there, all this information, the LDM, Kiniko, Pastor Kingsley, Pastor M, all these, a lot of even couples that have YouTube channels. You see that majority from your videos, I'm pretty sure you see majority of your viewership are ladies, right, compared to the men. So it's like, why is it that it's the women that are doing all this preparation? And I will tell you, from my perspective, I think women, I'm not going to speak for all women, but for myself, we tend to be more accommodating, right? You, in the sense that you will see something, you can see, well, okay, not everybody, but you can see a particular you can see into someone and be like, okay, you can offer them grace, is the word I'm trying to look for. You're willing to offer people grace, and sometimes those people are not deserving of the grace. So your good nature can be so, you can get hurt, you can get to the point where you're just like, okay, I'm done, I'm actually tired. And then, a right person might come along, but you're just like, see, I've been jaded, they have done me too many strong tea, I beg, So it's like, how can we reconcile that? Like, there's too much focus on biblical submission, where the ladies are now, some ladies are now like, oh, I have to be this, this and this, I have to, overlook a lot of things because the man is the leader of the family. But then on the other side, you have guys that really don't understand what biblical leadership is. They just think, oh, because I'm of the male gender, I can go around, I get to choose. They think that they are the prize, right? So they have options for guys. They have the options because, in the world, there's definitely more women than men in every church. In my church, there's like 2 times women than men. And we have situations where there are guys like they will date multiple people in the church, and they can afford to do that because the ladies are like, okay, I'm waiting, and maybe there's like one guy that has his ducks in a row. When I say his ducks in a row, not necessarily like financially, but at least he fears God. You can see that he knows kind of where he's trying to get to. He knows how to speak out, to have a conversation. He's someone that is emotionally intelligent, because these are all different recipes that everybody's looking at. So obviously he's gonna be like the one person that everybody's like, okay, let me just. So basically the question is, how do you think that the church has allowed a lot of guys to get away with not understanding what biblical leadership is, and getting away with a lot of things? And on the other hand, have they overemphasized biblical submission to the point that ladies now don't even understand their value, right? Where they can just fall for anybody and anything.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a heavy question.
It's an interesting one, and I think over time we have to agree, yes. Okay, I think it would be wrong to say otherwise. I think over time the pressure has definitely been on women, and I agree with you. And I think you've probably answered some of the questions in terms of what you just described. Most conferences, it's women. Everything, most things to do with dating, relationships are focused on women, and you can barely get men there. And I think it's there are a number of factors driving that. When we think about church, especially we African churches, Nigerian churches, most of what we do is still driven by our culture and our tradition anyway. So the woman that is going to the husband's house, she should learn how to cook, she needs to dress a certain way if she wants to attract. So a lot of these things are cultural traditions. Then there's also the biological side of things, which is, your woman's biological clock, ideally, they normally say it's 30, but before it was 30, I think it's now pushing back now because women are not really standing for it anymore. So by 30, you should be in your husband's house because you want to have kids, you want to do all these things. So all of those pressures, because of time as well, has been put on women. And I don't think enough have been told younger men. I think the most, but I think it is changing though. It is changing, but I'm talking about over time, or if we're thinking about maybe the last number of years to where we are. I think for men, a lot of things is just around finance. Most men are just told, at least what we understand is just make as much money as you can. Once you make that money, that is when you can truly be the head. So a lot of guys would see themselves as long as I'm a provider, right? And I'm a quote unquote protector, then I'm good. Like I'm the cream of the crop. So a lot of guys go about chasing money. So I'm gonna say maybe the reason you don't see a lot of men in this conferences is because we're out there chasing money, because we believe that's what we need to get to be that main guy. And you also see that when a guy has his job, he becomes the catch. He has a good job, he's doing well in life, he's achieved career heights, he feels he's doing well, and therefore it becomes like, I've got the options now. And even that still happens to a lot of guys. They don't want to settle down because they just want to go and make money. And I'll be the first to say there's nothing wrong with that. Money is finance is a big, massive part of marriage or any relationship. So there's nothing wrong with that. But there are other things that come with being a man in marriage, and people don't understand that the role of a husband is not just about being a man; it's a responsibility. All right, and if we're gonna go biblical in terms of the way God ordained it, the husband being the head of the house and his duty to love his wife is a massive one, because that has a lot to do with sacrifice. And that is something that once again I think is now being taught, because women have now stood up to say, hey, why is it us all the time? So I think these days, definitely 2024, there's more emphasis on this kind of teaching. I think the younger ones, so probably people of my age, are doing more work to educate the younger ones. Obviously, it's still not on the same scale as the amount of teaching that women get, or the amount of advice that women get. But I think I would say it's on the rise. So the mental aspect of being a man, how we deal with that, the spiritual aspect in terms of as a man. So I heard something the other day, once again from a young pastor in the UK. He was saying men have assumed the role of God in terms of being a provider. It's God that provides. It's God that can see you through. If you take on that role by yourself, you're going to end up killing yourself with anxiety. Because the time that you cannot provide, you'll be tearing your head out. And that's why, as a man, you need to have that relationship with God, and that's the way God ordained it. You have that relationship with God. Go to your family because you're the head, and God is the source. Tap from the source so you can feed your family with that. And of course, I talked about the thing about sacrifice. That's a massive thing in terms of how to lead and how to love your home. And also, that's the thing that, once again, we need to talk about more. What leadership is. You mentioned what Christian or spiritual leadership is, or what leadership looks like in the home. So it's not my way or the highway. It's not, if I say yes and you don't say yes, then you're not submissive. No. You have to understand that sometimes you have to take a back seat. Sometimes your wife might know more than you. Sometimes you have to let her lead on a certain part. For example, if she's better at finance, don't say because I'm the man of the house, therefore I have to do the finance stuff. If she's a financial advisor or financial manager, she's better than you at handling the whole finance as a leader. Some type of wisdom should kick in to say, all right, cool, you handle that part because you're an expert. And that's what leadership is. Sometimes we get it wrong in the sense that I'm the head of the home, so therefore I need to do everything. Everything needs to run past me, and that causes a lot of trouble. Submission for women has been overemphasized. Once again, I think women are fighting back because of the times we're in. Women are not just sitting there saying, I mean, there are a lot of women that still say, you know what, they don't believe in submission, or at least if they will submit, it has to be to the right people. And I don't 100% disagree with that. Although, if you follow in the Bible, that's what the Bible commands. You should submit. So, but I think it works hand in hand. And something I don't like that's happening in this time we're living in is we've made it a competition. We've made it a man versus woman thing. And I think the way God has ordained marriage to be, relationships to be, is a collaborative thing. It's a team sport. We should be working together. The idea of loving and submission should work hand in hand. And if we're working together as a team and doing that together as a team, we would have better and more successful marriages. But now it's become a competition. I don't submit until you lead. I don't lead until you submit. And sometimes we just find ourselves in a break point where, okay, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. I'm also not doing what I'm supposed to do. But you know it, that's the beginning of the end of the relationship. So I think, just circling back, I agree the church has overemphasized or not mentioned enough about the role of men, what men should be doing in marriage. And I think we can all do better that way. Like I said, culture plays a massive role. But depending on what part of the world you're living in, things are changing. Women are standing up for themselves. Women are no longer just saying, okay, I'm the woman, so okay. And everyone has to do what they're supposed to do to make it work. Everyone has a responsibility. You know, it's like I said, marriage for me, in my opinion, is a team sport. It's the biggest team sport, you know, you find yourself in. If you cannot work as a team, it's not going to work. You have to do your part. Both of you have to do your part. And it's not always 50-50, it's not always 100-100. Sometimes you're doing more than the other person, and vice versa. But you just have to do your part to keep the whole thing pushing forward. So that's what I feel about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Because marriage is the biggest team sport, and both parties must play their part to keep it moving forward. That's awesome. All right, so the next question I have, so we have 2 more questions. The next question I have is just in regards to, so I know we've all heard this idea of being served breakfast, right? So it's a Nigerian colloquialism, but pretty much means being jilted. And this has entered the church. So, you know, and I don't, you know, because my blog is primarily for young adults that are, you know, looking at things through a faith lens. So, you know, when I ask these questions, reason being is because it's something that also affects my community, people that I interact with, myself as well. So just the idea of, so how do we say, you know, the Bible says, guard your heart above else, and out of it flows the issues of life, right? So how do you safeguard this idea where, you know, you found your lovely bride in church, as you said, and we have situations now where they tell you, oh, you're looking for a spouse, oh, go to the church is where you're going to find them. But when you go to the church, it's the church brothers and some of the church sisters that are out here breaking hearts and serving the most hottest breakfast in town, and they will come and be scaboshing and praising the Lord, lifting up holy hands, but yet they know what they did to Cynthia. They know how they broke Cynthia through text, though they did not meet her face to face like, you know, adults, mature adults. So how do you suggest that, you know, both male and females, like, how do we safeguard our hearts in this economy where it's like, okay, do you want to settle down? right? They say find someone in the church. You do that, but then it's in the church where you get hurt the most. And it's in the church where, they say everybody comes, everybody's receiving treatment. Some people are responding, some people are not, right? So you're hurt, you're heartbroken by somebody in church, and you come to church to receive healing, and you're seeing that same person, right? And what could even be worse is that same person is not going around talking to other people. And you're just like, Lord, I'm out here just watching like, oh, am I a joke? Is this really happening? I came here to get healing. You are adding pepper into my, So how do you suggest basically like we go about safeguarding our hearts and ensuring that we're truly healed? Because it's a very, very difficult place to be at, where it's like, it will be different if it's people in the world. You're like, okay, that's people in the world, God save them, God will help them. But when it's someone in the church, it's like you're supposed to be, as I said, Christian brother, Christian sister, like of the same spiritual family. What's going on? How can you hurt me like this? How could you do this? So what kind of advice do you give in that kind of situation?
Let me before I actually even answer the question, let me just say something that I say this often. Breakups or 7 breakfasts as recorded it is not necessarily a bad thing. I know when you think about the disappointment because you're invested emotionally and in other ways, and you're hopeful that this should be the one, and it doesn't go the way you want. It can be disappointing, and like you said, it can be heartbreaking, and it needs healing, and that takes time. However, breaking up, turning you on the right path, because what's good to you doesn't necessarily mean is the right thing. So even though yes, the brother comes to church, he's in the choir, he plays the instruments, which are probably the ones that they say you should avoid the most. Or the woman, she's in the choir, she sings well, she's in the usher, she looks good, always carrying the Bible. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily the right person or the God ordained person for you. And because you would not listen, because you would not pay attention to the red flags, and that's God's way of turning you around to where you're supposed to be. So that breakfast was needed. Yes, it's gonna hurt at the time, but it could also be the best thing for you. I received a DM from a lady who she was going out with this guy. Been together for maybe a couple of years, and she was like, she wants to get married, but this guy is not really forthcoming, right? And and the guy was saying he wants to travel because he wants to be a doctor. So he was saying he wants to go to the UK. But all the signs he was giving was like, I'm not ready for this relationship stuff. Like this settling down, so I'm not ready. And she had been in it for a while, so she believed that could be the guy. She was asking me what should she do, and I was like, you have to be clear about what you want. If this is what you want to get married at this point in time. Don't follow somebody that's not on the same wavelength as you, somebody that doesn't want the same thing as you, because you would just end up wasting your time. So I messaged her maybe a few months down the line. She broke up with that guy. The next time I saw her post, I'm going to say maybe about a year afterwards, she's married to, and she's engaged to somebody else. And just looking at her post, they've got a baby now. They're married, and that's that. So I'm saying all of this to say that breakups might just be what you need if things are not going the way they should go. So the idea that I want to avoid breakup, I want to avoid heartbreak, and therefore you're managing situations you shouldn't be in, is probably a worse place to be than breakup. So I just want to put out there that breakup is not always a bad thing in context. Yes, it's disappointing. Yes, it hurts. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but if it's going to get you to where you need to be, the right place, then it's a pain worth having. That's what I say. In terms of how do you safeguard yourself, I feel like you need to, first of all, you need to work with your eyes, work with your head, and work with God. Okay, work with your eyes, work with your head, and work with God. Yes, you see what you like. We're all human beings. You see what you like, what looks good, what sounds good, you go for it. Now, because that looks like what appeals to you, don't leave your head at home. If this person is showing certain red flags, Don't stay there. Don't say, oh, because it looks good, you can manage, or because you can, I'll be willing to put up with this, and you start making excuses where there doesn't need to be excuses. For example, if you're dating somebody and you know you want to settle down, but they're saying that, you know what, I just want to go with the flow, I just want to see how this thing goes. Both of you are not aligned. You need to be, okay, fair enough. You don't want to rush, you don't want to be too abrupt. Give it some time. But after a while, you need to be letting this person know, okay, what are we doing? As opposed to just following, oh, he's a good guy, he'll come through, or she's a good woman, she'll come through. Come on, think for the guys. You're the one always chasing her. She never texts you back. She never comes back to you. Maybe you text her today, it takes her 3 days for her to respond. And then she messages you, and then she goes off again. And the next time she messages, oh, I'm hungry, can you please send some food to my house? There's never no real conversation. But because she looks a certain way, she's endowed in certain places, she's in the church, you believe, oh, let me put up. No, don't put up. Don't leave your head at home. And if it looks good in your head, it looks good in your eyes, still consult with God. I'm one of those people. I don't believe God chooses your partner for you. I'm one of those. I don't believe that, but I believe God can help you in identifying if you are with the right person. Okay, so yes, sometimes it looks good to us. Sometimes, because everyone puts their best foot forward in most cases anyway, still consult with God and see what God says. So don't just be led by your emotions, by your feelings, by the things that are looking real to you. Still check with God, because God is the all-knowing and all-seeing. So I would say that's probably the best way to safeguard your heart. And if you see red flags, don't be scared to walk away. A lot of times, and this is something I talk a lot about on my YouTube channel, people waste their time staying in places that they don't need to be staying in. If somebody is showing you signs that they are not aligned with what you're looking for, and this is why it's important to know your non-negotiables. It's important to know the things that you need, the things that you want, the things that you can negotiate on, and the things that you don't really care about, they're just nice to have. And if somebody is not aligned with those things, then make your way out. Don't stay there forcing things. Don't stay there being the one that's always initiating, being the one that's always pushing, and this other person is just living their life the way they want. But because you think time is passing you by, or because you have this great affection for this person, you think, let me just put up with it. If you do that, you're going to find yourself where you don't want eventually. So I would say put those things in place, and everything else we've talked about on the score, I think you stand a good chance, because nothing is really guaranteed. Let's be honest. Nothing is guaranteed. All right? Nothing is guaranteed. So yes, we can say all this stuff, and I think it's just to put the odds on your side. You can do everything right and still get delivered this breakfast, first class. So it's not like, there's sometimes people get really dejected and really disappointed. I did everything. I maintained my standards. I set my boundaries. I did all these things, and yet it still went wrong. That is just part of life. And I say that people that are dating, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not like, don't. It sounds harsh, but don't be a baby about it. Sometimes things happen. It's not because you've done anything wrong. It's not because you're wrong. It's not because you're bad. It's not because, it's just life. Sometimes, just like in our daily life, we go for jobs where you're qualified, you did a good interview, and still don't get the job. It's just life. So people sometimes, things don't work out the way they expect it to, and then they go into this negative attitude of all men are bad, men are trash, women are this, women are this. I think that's a very wrong way to look at it. It's just life. Things would not always work out the way you want, even though you've done everything you're supposed to do. So when you're dating, when you're meeting people, always have that at the back of your mind. Yes, I'll do my part. I'll put in my boundaries. I'll work on myself. I'll give value. At the same time, it must still not work out. Does it hurt? Of course it does. Is it disappointing? Yes, it is. But that is just part of the game. I don't like to call it game, but that's just the way it is. And you have to be grown about it. You have to be matured about it. Do what you need to do to get over it. if you need to take some time off, but don't get in a negative mindset, because that just sets you further back. Because once you start seeing men as bad people, even God cannot answer your prayer. How do you want to date? You're asking God to date somebody that you concluded that they're horrible. It doesn't work. It's a contradiction, right? It's not going to work. So, and vice versa, same for a guy towards a woman. If you think all women are this way and you're asking God for a good wife, it's not going to work because you've already made your conclusions. So don't let heartbreaks set you back, because that's just the way it is sometimes. And you have to learn to pick yourself up. It's not easy, but learn to pick yourself up, because really and truly you only need to get it right once. So
man, oh my gosh, I'm so annoyed. Why could we not record this session feels like therapy. Like, I wish we could have recorded this would be so good. But you know, it is what it is. No, thank you so much. That was just very beautiful. And you know, when you were speaking, what just came to my mind is me and my friends sometimes we just talk about the fact that before we didn't understand why people, when they get engaged, start crying. I'm like, now we get it. They have seen when their eye, what my eye has seen. Hallelujah, thank the Lord. You know, but that's legit it, right? Like, as you said, you can do all the right things, you can, you know, all of that. And someone said that dating is literally a faith work, and you need God's mercy, that, you know. And that's why sometimes, you know, when you listen to all these, especially, you have to be careful to not listen to so much, because you can just get to a point where you're like, okay, over preparation, like, I've done everything, and what else do you want from me? Like, what else am I supposed to do? Where I think, you know, yes, you prepare and you do all that you need to do, but everything in life is balance, right? Too much of anything is not good. So being able to recognize when, okay, this is starting to get a bit much now, like, I can see some, like, my emotions are just like, you know, why was I annoyed when that young man did not reply back? I'm like, I know, should not be angry, does not reply. That's his own. It's okay. We move, you know. So
I get we're all human beings, right? So all these things, they take their toll. They affect us.
It does.
If we're gonna be real.
Yeah.
But I think that's where that self-work comes in, where you can sort of regulate your emotions. You don't need to lash out. You can, if you text somebody and they didn't respond to you, you don't need to start. I mean, you can. I won't advise you to stop them, but you don't need to necessarily get angry about it and show emotions. You can just sort of hold. You feel what you feel, of course, because you're a human being, but you hold back in terms of how you show it. And that's where maturity. That's where maturity lies. Someone just text you, right then, why didn't you text me? I just respond normally. How are you? You're good. Whatever you know, I messaged you the other day, you didn't respond. Hope everything is all right. Like, it just makes you a nice person to talk to, but at the same time you also have to show that you're not walkover, you're not doormat where people can just act anyhow. You know, so like you said, finding that balance in how you do things, it helps.
It's awesome. Okay, our last question for today is any tips or advice that you have for young Christian singles that are hoping to settle down and to build a purposeful, God-ordained marriage? So what would you tell them of how they can prepare themselves for the future that they're hoping to get, and kind of what words of advice or words of encouragement would you tell someone in that space?
I think we've spoken a lot about what we can be done or what we should be doing. I think probably the biggest one for me is just working on yourself. Just that holding yourself accountable. Everything, I say again, everything starts with self. Don't underestimate how important it is for you to be in the right place, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and of course financially, before you go about looking for relationships. It doesn't always have to be 10 out of 10 in those areas, but there are things that you got into a very, very good level, because all of that adds to the value you can bring. And when people see value in you, of course you would attract all different types of people anyway. That's just life, you know. But you will retain people that have value, or the value you have to give. Okay, so pay attention to that, and I think that's probably the biggest one. And hold yourself accountable. When things go wrong, don't be quick to blame somebody else. First of all, look at what is it that you could have done differently in that situation. And sometimes there's nothing. And being accountable is not self-blame. It's not saying it's my fault.
Yeah.
But it's just, what can I work on? Because sometimes we meet people and we don't know it's our attitude that's pushing them away. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was dating and just meeting women generally, I thought I was doing everything right and just women just didn't like me. But in retrospect, after a while, when I look back, I just came across too needy. I came across too almost desperate in a way. Like, I was so giving and just always the one initiating, the one always calling. And I guess the women I was talking to at that point, they go, okay, that's nice in terms of them getting attention, but I just got friend zoned, And until I had that realization, I started holding back and started drawing people onto me, because yes, you're a good person, but that doesn't mean you should just give without asking, And sometimes we feel like, oh, I like this, but let me just keep giving. Sometimes you have to hold back, also get something back. Let them also show that they are interested in you. Let them also draw them to yourself, right? So that's just an example, and a lot of things just come from self-work, paying attention to yourself, understanding your needs, your expectations. All of those things are part of just things from your perspective, and the reason I'm emphasizing on this is the only thing you can control.
Yes.
The only thing you can control is everything to do with yourself. How somebody else is going to behave, how they are going to react, how they are going to respond, you have zero control over that. Only they know that. So if you keep focusing on what they should be doing, you're not going to get anywhere. Focus on what you should be doing, and in doing that, you also know who not to even engage with. Once you understand yourself, you know that, okay, as much as you're attractive, as much as you seem to have it going on financially, and you got your stuff in a row, you're still not the right person for me, because there are certain values you have that doesn't align with me, whether that as a man or that as a woman. Okay, because sometimes if you don't know yourself, you just go for the shiny objects, right? You go for the things that everyone says looks good. This person is working well, they carry themselves a certain way, they do this, they do that. So you think, oh yeah, should be the right person. And then once you get closer, it's a horrible thing. But once you know who you are, what you have, what you're looking for, and you're in that space, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, because a lot of attraction is physical, right? So you know what's right for you and what's not right for you. And then the other thing is, you cannot leave God out of the equation. Like I said earlier on, as much as I don't believe that God chooses your partner for you, I believe God still has a say in who's right and who's not right for you. So don't leave out the space of checking in with God if your pick is the right one. So don't just let love don't just let love take over, and the feeling of newness take over, that you think, okay, and it's when things break up, that's when you go to God and say, God, please, what's happened? Do that when it's still early stages, so you don't waste your time, and so you don't overcommit or give too much to a situation that's not going anywhere. That would probably be my advice. I think that, in of course, with lots of other things said.
Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. And then just last kind of rounding up, if people would like to connect with you, book sessions with you, do you do that? Is that a possibility? And what do they need to do that?
So 2025, by God's grace, I'll look to start having coaching sessions for people that are dating, people that are looking to get into relationships. So that's something to look out for. But for now, if you just on my YouTube page, although I've not been really active on there for the most part this year, once again, 2025, I'll pick that one. I'll pick all of that up. God keeping us with that. So Josh Love Talk,